After saving for 3 years, Michael Davison finally purchased the above-ground pool his family had been dreaming about. Every summer in their suburban Phoenix neighborhood, temperatures regularly soared into the high 90s and often broke 100 degrees. Their modest 1,800 square foot home on Sycamore Street had a decently sized backyard, but without any means to escape the relentless heat, the family usually ended up crowded around their small living room air conditioner during the hottest months. Michael and his wife Ellie had two children, 10-year-old Lily and 7-year-old Noah, who had been begging for a pool since they'd visited their cousin's house 3 summers ago. Michael had researched extensively, comparing prices, durability, and maintenance requirements of different models. He'd set aside a portion of his paycheck from his accounting job each month, and Ellie had contributed by taking on extra shifts at the local hospital where she worked as a nurse. When Michael finally ordered the 15-foot diameter Intex Ultra XTR frame pool, the children danced around the kitchen in excitement. A delivery date was circled in bright red marker on the family calendar hanging on the refrigerator. When the large boxes arrived on a Thursday afternoon, Michael immediately called his brother-in-law James, who had experience with pool installations from his landscaping business. That weekend became a full family event. James arrived early Saturday morning with his leveling equipment and extra tools. Michael's father showed up shortly after with donuts and coffee for everyone. The children helped by organizing the smaller components and reading instructions aloud, while Ellie kept everyone hydrated with ice-cold lemonade. The Arizona sun beat down mercilessly as the men measured and remeasured the area, ensuring perfect placement. Michael had already removed the grass and created a sand base the previous weekend. They worked methodically, leveling the ground with painstaking precision. James repeatedly emphasized that even a half-inch difference could compromise the entire structure. "Trust me," James warned, wiping sweat from his brow. "You don't want to fill this thing and then watch 3,500 gallons of water come rushing out because one side was lower than the other." Michael had done his homework regarding local regulations. He'd visited the city offices twice to ensure compliance with all codes. The pool needed to be at least 5 feet from any property line, required a dedicated safety fence with a self-closing gate, and needed proper drainage plans. He'd even spoken with his homeowner's insurance agent to update his policy appropriately. By Sunday afternoon, the pool structure was complete. The sturdy metal frame gleamed in the sunlight, and the blue liner was taut and perfect. Michael installed the filter system and salt chlorinator, while James helped construct the code-compliant fence around the perimeter. They installed solar-powered lights along the pathway from the house and placed non-slip mats at the pool's entrance. As the sun began to set, Michael connected the garden hose and began filling the pool. The children sat at the edge of the deck, dangling their feet and watching with fascination as the water level slowly rose. Ellie brought out a tray of ice cream sandwiches to celebrate. "This is going to change our summers completely," she said, putting her arm around Michael's shoulders. Michael nodded, feeling a deep sense of satisfaction. After years of planning, saving, and working, he had provided something special for his family. Little did he know that their new backyard oasis would soon become the center of neighborhood drama that no one could have anticipated. 2 houses down from the Davisons, at 724 Sycamore Street, lived Patricia Wilkins. At 58 years old, Patricia had resided in Saguaro Heights longer than any other current resident. She'd moved in 23 years ago when the subdivision was newly constructed, purchasing one of the first homes with her then-husband before their divorce 3 years later. In the decades since, Patricia had appointed herself the neighborhood's unofficial standards keeper. Patricia's Tudor-style home stood out from the others on the street with its impeccably maintained exterior. Not a blade of grass grew out of place in her xeriscate front yard, and her desert plants were trimmed with surgical precision. Her garage was rumored to contain a small arsenal of gardening tools, each hanging in its designated spot marked by a carefully stenciled outline. The Wilkins residence had won the Community Beautification Award 5 years running, a fact Patricia mentioned within the first 3 minutes of any conversation with a new neighbor. Over the years, Patricia had established herself as the person nobody wanted to cross. When the Martinez family installed a basketball hoop at the curb, Patricia filed 7 separate complaints with the city until it was removed. When elderly Mr. Johnson couldn't keep up with his lawn maintenance after his hip surgery, Patricia didn't offer help. Instead, she circulated a petition about negligent properties decreasing home values. Her campaign against Halloween decorations that remain past November 2nd was legendary, as was her crusade against excessive Christmas lights that she claimed created light pollution. Patricia's reputation preceded her to such an extent that new homeowners were quietly warned about her during their welcome visits from friendlier neighbors. "Whatever you do," they'd be told in hushed tones, "don't give Patricia a reason to notice you." Patricia's daily routine was predictable. Each morning at precisely 6:15, she would emerge for her brisk 30-minute walk around the neighborhood, clipboard in hand. Residents joked that she was conducting inspections, But the comedy faded when mailboxes sporting minor dents mysteriously received code violation notices days later. From 9 o'clock to 10 o'clock, she could be found watering her plants and surveying the street from behind oversized sunglasses. Throughout the day, her silhouette appeared regularly in her front bay window, curtains slightly parted. Until now, Michael and Ellie had largely escaped Patricia's scrutiny. Their lawn maintenance was adequate, if not exceptional, and their holiday decorations were modest and promptly removed. Their children were generally well-behaved, and Michael usually remembered to retrieve their garbage bins by nightfall on collection days. The Davisons existed in Patricia's peripheral awareness as a family that hadn't yet required her attention. But that changed the moment the first pool package arrived on the Davisons' driveway. Patricia had been checking her mail when the delivery truck pulled up. She watched with narrowing eyes as the driver unloaded multiple large boxes. When a second delivery arrived the following day, Patricia retrieved a small notebook from her pocket and made a notation, her lips pressed into a thin line. From her second-floor window, Patricia observed the entire weekend installation process, occasionally raising a pair of binoculars for a better view. When Michael and James measured the distance from the property line, she jotted down numbers. When they installed the safety fence, she snapped photos with her phone. By Sunday evening, as the Davisons celebrated with ice cream around their filling pool, Patricia was already at her computer, researching municipal codes with determined focus. "We'll see about this," she muttered to herself, printing out community guidelines and highlighting passages with a fluorescent yellow marker. Patricia had found her new project, and the Davisons had unwittingly graduated from background neighbors to primary targets. 3 days after the pool was filled, the Davison family had fallen into a pleasant new routine. The children would finish their summer reading in the morning and spend the afternoon splashing in the water. Ellie appreciated being able to relax on the deck with her novel after night shifts at the hospital. Michael had even set up a small weatherproof table where he could answer emails on his laptop while dipping his feet in the cool water. Wednesday afternoon brought the first disruption to their peaceful arrangement. The doorbell rang at precisely 2:17 p.m., just as Michael was wrapping up a video call with his office. He opened the front door to find Patricia Wilkins standing rigidly on his welcome mat, clutching a thick manila folder to her chest. Her gray blonde hair was pulled back in a severe bun, and she wore pressed khaki slacks despite the 98-degree heat. "Mr. Davison," she began without preamble, "I'm Patricia Wilkins from 724. We need to discuss your recent backyard addition." Michael maintained a polite smile. "Hello, Ms. Wilkins. Nice to officially meet you. We've lived here for 4 years, but I don't think we've ever been properly introduced." Patricia's expression didn't change. "I prepared some documentation you need to review." She extracted a stack of papers from her folder, each page separated by colored tabs and highlighted sections. The Saguaro Heights community has standards that all residents are expected to maintain for the collective benefit of property values. Michael accepted the papers, quickly scanning the top sheet. "I appreciate your concern, Ms. Wilkins, but I don't think these apply to our property. We're not part of an HOA here." Patricia's lips tightened. "Perhaps not officially, but there are neighborhood standards that have been in place since the development was established." Section 4, paragraph 3, she leaned forward to flip to a blue tab page, her finger landing on a highlighted section. Clearly states that permanent recreational installations must be aesthetically consistent with community design principles. Michael skimmed the document, noticing the letterhead didn't match any official city documentation he had reviewed. This appears to be from the original developer's marketing materials from the 1990s. These aren't binding regulations. They establish the neighborhood character. Patricia insisted, her voice rising slightly. Above-ground pools are universally recognized as unsightly temporary structures that significantly decrease surrounding property values by up to 8.4%. From the backyard, Noah's delighted squeals echoed as Ellie presumably splashed him. Michael felt a surge of protectiveness. "I've verified with the city that we're in complete compliance with all current codes. The pool has proper fencing, appropriate setbacks from property lines, and all required safety features." Patricia's nostrils flared slightly. The aesthetic impact remains unaddressed. "I appreciate your input," Michael said, maintaining his composure, "but we've made our decision after careful research and consideration." "You'll want to reconsider," Patricia said, tapping another highlighted section. Page 17 outlines the community review process for non-compliant installations. "You got 7 days for notification, which is now, to remedy the situation." "Thank you for stopping by," Michael said firmly, beginning to close the door. "I'll review these, but again, we're fully code compliant." Patricia's foot shifted forward, but stopped just short of the threshold. "I've been on this street for 23 years, Mr. Davison. I've seen many temporary residents come and go." That evening, after tucking the children into bed, Michael discovered a printed note tucked under his windshield wiper. Written in precise 12-point Times New Roman font, it read, Final notice regarding non-compliant recreational installation. Failure to remove within 7 days will necessitate escalation to appropriate authorities and potential legal consequences for property value diminishment. This constitutes official notification per Section 8 of Community Standards. Michael crumpled the paper and tossed it into the recycling bin, but a faint uneasiness had settled in his stomach. Something in Patricia's tone suggested this wasn't merely an empty threat. The following Saturday marked Lily's 11th birthday. Months earlier, she had begged her parents for a pool party, never imagining they would actually own a pool by the time her birthday arrived. Michael and Ellie had sent invitations to 6 of Lily's closest friends, and the RSVPs had all come back with enthusiastic yeses. The morning of the party, Michael woke early to prepare. He hung colorful streamers from the fence surrounding the pool area and arranged a table with snacks, drinks, and a mermaid-themed birthday cake. Ellie inflated a collection of pool floats shaped like donuts, flamingos, and unicorns. Noah helped by distributing pool noodles in rainbow colors around the deck. "This is the best birthday ever, Dad," Lily declared as she inspected the decorations, her face glowing with excitement. By noon, the party was in full swing. Children splashed and shrieked with joy in the water, while parents chatted in the shade of the large patio umbrella Michael had recently purchased. The Martinez, the Paddles, the Squartzes, the Goggins, the Clarks, and the Williamses all commented on how wonderful the pool was and how perfectly it fit into the Davisons' backyard. "We were considering getting one too," James Clark mentioned, accepting a glass of lemonade from Ellie. "Mind if I ask where you got yours and what the installation process was like?" As Michael began explaining the details, a mechanical roar erupted from across the street. Every head turned toward the source of the noise, Patricia Wilkins standing at the edge of her property with an industrial-strength leaf blower. Despite her yard being immaculately clear of debris, she moved methodically along her property line, operating the blower at maximum power. Within minutes, the cloud of dust, leaves, and small twigs was drifting directly toward the Davisons' backyard. Parents quickly called children out of the pool as grit began settling on the water's surface. Lily's face fell as she watched her perfect party being disrupted. "I'll handle this," Michael said to Ellie, his jaw tightening. He crossed the street, stopping at the edge of Patricia's property. "Excuse me, Ms. Wilkins," he called over the roar of the leaf blower. "Would you mind pausing that for a bit? We're having a children's birthday party, and the dust is blowing into the pool." Patricia shut off the machine but kept her finger hovering near the power button. With her other hand, she raised her phone and pointed it directly at Michael. "I am documenting all violations for the City Enforcement Department," she announced loudly enough that everyone across the street could hear. "This includes non-compliant recreational installations, noise violations exceeding permitted decibel levels, and unauthorized gatherings exceeding residential capacity limits." Michael kept his voice level, aware of the parents and children watching from his yard. "There are no violations here, Ms. Wilkins. We're having a small birthday party for my daughter within entirely reasonable hours." Patricia's phone continued recording. 6 vehicles parked on a residential street constitutes potential obstruction of emergency access routes. The splashing noises have been measured at 68 decibels, which exceeds weekend residential allowances by 3 decibels. "Those aren't actual regulations," Michael said, his patience wearing thin. "Please, we're just celebrating my daughter's birthday. I've already documented the chemical odor emanating from your unauthorized water feature," Patricia continued as if he hadn't spoken. "Chlorine off-gassing in residential areas is a reportable environmental concern." Michael returned to the party, apologizing to the guests. Though everyone assured him it wasn't his fault, the joyful atmosphere had dimmed. The children returned to the pool, but their play was more subdued. Lily's special day had been tarnished. That evening, after the last guest had departed and the children were in bed, Michael received a notification email from the city. The subject line read, "Complaint filing #CR20,250,607-43, residential code violation." According to the automatically generated message, an anonymous complaint had been registered regarding an illegal swimming facility operating without proper permits at their address. The email indicated that an inspector would be contacting them within 3 business days. Monday morning arrived with a sense of dread for Michael. The automated email had indicated an inspector would contact them within 3 business days, but at 8:27 a.m., his cell phone rang with a call from City of Phoenix. "Mr. Davison, this is Ray Gonzalez from the Code Compliance Division. We've received a complaint about your property at 728 Sycamore Street. I'm in your area today. Would you be available for an inspection this morning?" Michael glanced at his calendar full of meetings. "I can make myself available. What time are you thinking?" "I can be there in about 40 minutes if that works for you." After calling his office to reschedule his morning appointments, Michael spent the next half hour gathering all his documentation. He collected the permits, receipts, safety certificates, installation guidelines, and printed copies of the city codes he consulted before installation. He arranged everything meticulously on the dining room table, along with his notes from conversations with city officials during the planning phase. At precisely 9:14 a.m., a white city vehicle pulled up in front of the house. Through the living room window, Michael spotted Patricia emerging onto her porch almost simultaneously, clipboard in hand. She made a show of noting the time in what appeared to be a logbook. Ray Gonzalez was a man in his early 50s with salt and pepper hair and the weathered look of someone who spent considerable time outdoors. He wore a city polo shirt with an ID badge and carried a tablet in a rugged case. "Mr. Davison," Ray Gonzalez, he said, extending his hand. "Thanks for making yourself available on short notice." "No problem," Michael replied, leading him into the dining room. I gathered all the documentation related to the pool installation. Ray's eyebrows rose slightly at the organized display. "I see you've come prepared." "We were very careful to follow all regulations," Michael explained. "I spoke with the permitting office twice before purchasing anything." Ray nodded, scrolling through information on his tablet. "When we receive a complaint citing multiple violations, improper setbacks from property lines, inadequate safety barriers, unauthorized water disposal plans, chemical storage concerns, and exceeding permitted residential recreational square footage." "None of that is accurate," Michael said, pushing forward the relevant documents. For the next 20 minutes, Ray methodically compared Michael's documentation with the regulations on his tablet. He measured setbacks from property lines, inspected the safety fence and self-closing gate, reviewed the water treatment system, and examined the planned drainage procedure for end-of-season emptying. "Everything appears to be in perfect order," Ray finally concluded, making notes on his tablet. "Your installation actually exceeds safety requirements with these additional latches on the gate. Good thinking with the non-slip mats, too." Michael felt a weight lift from his shoulders. "Thank you for being thorough. We wanted to make sure we did everything right." Ray hesitated, then lowered his voice slightly. "Off the record, Mr. Davison, this is the third call we've received about your pool, all from the same number. The first came in before you'd even finished installing it." "Let me guess," Michael said. "Patricia Wilkins at 724 Sycamore?" Ray's professional demeanor didn't change, but a flicker of recognition crossed his face. "I can't confirm the source of complaints, but," he paused, glancing out the window where Patricia could be seen pretending to prune a plant while watching the house. "Let's just say our department has a special folder for certain addresses that generate high volumes of complaints. Your street features prominently." As they walked to the backyard for a final visual inspection, Ray commented, "Beautiful installation, by the way. My kids would love something like this." "I'd be happy to share the supplier information," Michael offered. "Might take you up on that," Ray replied with a smile. "Anyway, you'll receive an official clearance notice by email this afternoon. The case will be closed with a finding of no violation." As Ray's city vehicle pulled away, Michael noticed Patricia still on her porch, phone pressed to her ear, her free hand gesticulating sharply. She looked directly at Michael, her expression a mix of frustration and determination. It was clear that despite the official inspection clearing him completely, this matter was far from over in Patricia Wilkins' mind. By mid-August, the summer heat had reached its peak. With daily temperatures hovering around 104 degrees, the Davisons' pool had become the family's salvation. The children spent most afternoons in the water, and even Michael and Ellie had developed a routine of relaxing evening swims after dinner. For 2 weeks following the inspector's visit, Patricia had maintained an uneasy distance. She still conducted her daily surveillance walks past their house and occasionally took photos from across the street, but there had been no direct confrontations. Michael had begun to hope that the official clearance had finally ended the matter. The third weekend of August brought slightly cooler temperatures and a decision from Michael. The neighborhood schools would resume sessions the following week, and the extended forecast showed a cooling trend approaching. It seemed like the right time to begin the process of winterizing the pool. "I think we should start draining it this weekend," he told Ellie over breakfast. "The kids can have one last swim today, and then we'll begin the disassembly process tomorrow." Ellie nodded reluctantly. "It's been such a wonderful addition to our summer. The kids will be disappointed." "We'll set it up earlier next year," Michael promised. "April, probably as soon as it gets warm enough." That afternoon, Michael reviewed the pool manufacturer's instructions for end-of-season care. The process was straightforward. Neutralize the remaining chemicals with a balancing agent, then slowly drain the water in stages to avoid overwhelming the yard with 3,500 gallons at once. Michael had carefully researched proper drainage methods before installation. City guidelines prohibited draining chlorinated water directly into storm sewers but allowed gradual dispersal onto one's own property as long as it didn't flood neighboring yards. On Sunday morning, Michael added the neutralizing agent to the pool and waited the recommended 4 hours for it to fully circulate. After confirming the water chemistry with test strips, he connected a garden hose to the drain valve and ran it to the far corner of their backyard where he had created a small drainage area with gravel and drought-resistant plants. Michael opened the valve to start a slow drain that would take approximately 8 hours to complete. The water trickled gently into the prepared area, absorbing into the ground at a measured pace. He had just finished setting a timer to remind himself to check the progress when the unmistakable sound of a police siren chirped briefly from the front of the house. Through the kitchen window, Michael saw a Phoenix Police Department SUV parked at the curb. An officer in uniform was already walking up the driveway. "Michael?" Ellie called from the living room, concern evident in her voice. "It's okay," he assured her, though his stomach had nodded. "I'll handle it." The officer at the door was a woman in her 30s with short brown hair and professional demeanor. Her nameplate read, "Officer Ramirez." "Good afternoon, sir. I'm responding to a call about illegal chemical dumping at this address." Michael felt a surge of disbelief. "Chemical dumping? I'm just draining our pool for the season." "That's what I need to verify," Officer Ramirez explained. "We received a report about unauthorized disposal of hazardous swimming pool chemicals into the groundwater system and intentional contamination of the water table." Michael struggled to keep his tone even. "I followed all city guidelines. The water has been properly neutralized and I'm draining it slowly into a designated area on my own property. Would you mind showing me?" Officer Ramirez asked, her tone suggesting this was more procedural than accusatory. Michael led her through the house to the backyard, explaining each step of the process he had followed. He showed her the test strips, confirming the neutralized chemistry, the manufacturer's winterizing instructions, and the printout of city guidelines for pool drainage.